Okay, so this is my first post for Letraset. I'm a little bit nervous, so please bear with me, and sorry if I say something wrong or mess anything up, but I also apologise for the angle of the camera, but at the moment this is the only setup that I can do. So again, I didn't want to put the camera over the other side of the pictures and have it upside down, because I myself would find that awkward to look at. So I've done it this way round. Hopefully you'll bear with me, and hopefully next time you see a tutorial from me I'll have a slightly better setup. And these are a brand new release from a wonderful company called Visible Image. Recently I had the wonderful job of colouring these up for their packaging. So these are the stamp packs that were done. This is my colouring that you can see on the stamp pack. So as you can see, the monkey now has lots of fur and feathers for his wings, and then, you know, obviously his clothes. But I've also been asked, the second reason for doing this as well, is I've also been asked for some specific tutorials from people for these actual images. So the great thing about them is there's lots of different textures. So we have fur, we've got feathers, we've got material, we've got metal. So they are a great set of images to be able to show some different techniques with colouring. But I thought before I started getting into all the details of how I'd do a specific image or how I'd colour a certain material or texture, I thought I'd give some basics on colouring. Obviously my pen of choice, or my marker of choice, is Promarker, but these hints and tips that I'm going to give you now are just basic hints and tips, and throughout the weeks, months, hopefully years that I'm doing these tutorials for everyone, I will obviously give more in-depth tips and hints and information. But for now I just wanted to stick with the basics of where I'd start. So the first thing is whatever medium I'm using, whether it be markers or pencils, and from whatever brand, I will always have a colour chart. So this Promarker colour chart can be printed off from the Letraset website. You can print it out pre-coloured, or in this case you can print it out where all these little boxes are blank and you can colour them in yourself. My suggestion and my tip is print it out on the paper that you are more than likely going to be colouring on, and colour it in with each of the pens you've got. It then enables you to see what pens you've got, what colours you've got, look quickly to see what you think will shade with the next colour. It also shows you how that particular pen and that particular colour will come out on the paper that you use. So that's my first tip. The next tip is your paper. So paper really does matter. The smoother the better, and you want one that doesn't absorb lots and lots of ink in one go, that basically lets your ink remain slightly wet on your paper so you have a little bit of time to move it around. Right, another tip of mine is fine nibs. Promarker, as most of you will know, come with a bullet nib and a chisel nib, but they also sell fine nibs, and these just slot over the end of your bullet nib. Now I tend to use fine nibs a lot, purely because it gives me a lot more control. Plus I'm not necessarily colouring in massive images, so to have a fine nib and be able to get into the smaller areas makes things a lot easier. Obviously the nib isn't permanent, so if I wanted to take it off and just use my bullet nib, or I wanted to use my chisel nib, I still can. So I've got the best of all the worlds. And if I'm colouring a bigger image or a bigger area, I will just take off the fine nib. It literally pulls off like that, and I've then got my bullet nib to use. But a little tip as well is, a lot of people, if they haven't got the fine nibs, struggle with the bullet nibs to get the effect that they want, which is like a flicking motion. That's the way I colour. My advice, as strange as it sounds, is use your chisel nib. Your chisel nib, obviously like this, is not going to give you a fine flick. But if you use just on the very tip of your chisel nib, it's nice and hard, so it holds its shape, and you can get, I mean, you can see some of them are non-existent, very fine flicks with it. So as you can see, I mean, this was with the bullet nib, as you can see, the flicks are finer than that. So not just is it good for turning a bit more sideways for if you're filling bigger areas or doing grass or something like that, but the chisel nib, surprisingly, is probably better than the bullet nib, so I find, if you haven't got fine nibs. Obviously, with what nibs you use, how you colour, the style you colour in, it is all just down to personal preference at the end of the day. There is no right or wrong way. There are ways that will look better than other ways. Don't forget, some things will look better to some people than they do to others, because everyone has different tastes and different styles, and there's nothing wrong with that. The main thing with colouring is have fun, enjoy it, and learn to use your pens in the way that's best for you, in the way that you get the most out of them, and the way that you feel most comfortable and that makes you want to pick them up again next time and colour. My next tip is, I tend to always use, and I would always recommend using, a minimum of 3 shades. So in this case, where I'm using blues, what I mean by 3 shades is you'd have a dark, you'd have a medium, and you have a light. Okay, and on my colour chart you can see them as dark, medium and light. So although on here these 2 colours look very similar when you look at them on their labels, as you can see on here they are very different. Okay, this is why it's a great idea to have a colour chart, because you can see how your colours are actually going to come out. And you'll find that with a lot of pens in a lot of brands, they will look one colour on their label and they will come out a different colour on paper. So it's always worth doing this so you know what you're working with. In this case I've got French Navy, Sky Blue and Arctic Blue. So that is my dark, my medium and my light. And that's what I would use as a minimum, is 3 shades, a dark, a medium and light. Now that doesn't mean you have to have a really dark, a medium, a light. This could be my darkest colour, which then means this is my medium, which then means I would need a blue that's lighter than that to be my light. And then that would be my 3 shades light. So that would then create a lighter blue than that combination, but I've still got a dark, a medium and a light. So that's the rough basis of how you work out your colours. If you have more than 3 colours that you can blend and you feel comfortable in doing so, then use more than 3 colours. So in this case I've got Aegean, don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I say it, and as you can see from the colour chart, it's quite close to the French Navy, but it is a bit lighter, and it's quite close to the Sky Blue, but it is a bit darker. So this is where you can start to add even more depth into your colouring, is by adding then additional colours in. So then again, if I had another colour that was between the Sky Blue and the Arctic Blue, and I added that in, that would be another colour that adds a little bit more depth and definition. That's not to say you have to have more than 3. With Promarkers, the wonderful thing about them is the colours build up the more you go over themselves. So really, if you wanted to work with just 1 pen, you could work with 1 pen. But the best way to work with that 1 pen would be, you basically still need to create your dark, your medium and light. So if you coloured an area, and then you went over that area but didn't quite go over the bottom bit, you've now got a light compared to the dark. If you then just do the top area, you've now got a dark compared to the medium compared to the light. So you can, with just 1 pen, create your dark, your medium and your light, but you will, of course, the more colours you get, create a better depth of colour, and will probably find it easier because it's a definite change between the colours that you're using. You'll find it easier to colour it. So that's the other thing. The other thing to bear in mind with any type of alcohol marker is they will lighten up when they dry. As the alcohol evaporates, they will lighten up. So if you have a really nice colour that you're really happy with, just bear in mind you're probably better to do it slightly darker than what you want it, because once the alcohol's evaporated, they will become lighter.